Story 1. Hey, can you fix my daughter's laptop for free multiple times? A bit of backstory, sus personal beliefs. I'm willing to help my friends, but we all know someone who has or has themselves a friend who is the group mooch. The kind of person who knows you're getting together and just shows up with nothing in hand and expects to be given free food, booze the entire time. Yet, sadly, you put up with them till it gets to the breaking point of wanting to beat them senseless with a shovel. This story is about said friend whom I finally got to the breaking point with. My moocher friend isn't tech savvy, like at all. He has zero respect for tech and constantly uses me as his go-to man when stuff goes sideways, almost always is doing. This is from the olden days of Windows 8 being a fresh, hot mess that was the next big thing everyone hated because it took the standard Windows interface, beat it over the head with a bat, tossed the bloody corpse into a wood chipper, then proceeded to light the remaining slurry on fire with military-grade napalm. I hate Windows 8 in case you didn't pick up on that. He had recently bought a laptop for his daughter since she was starting to need it for school, and he wanted a mobile PC to use when he felt like it. Pretty sure he just wanted it for himself, but needed to convince his wife to okay the expense. Instead of asking me for input, he decided he was just going to go to Big Blue Multi-Story and buy the cheapest laptop model that rhymes with H. It took less than a day of him fighting with it to call me and ask if I'd put Windows 7 on it because he hated Windows 8. I asked why not return it and get a Windows 7 model, to which he responded, "Big Blue doesn't have any Windows 7, only 8. And my daughter really needs this computer." Sure she does. I agree, and he drops it off within an hour. I should note that this happened just after Windows 8 dropped, and there were no classic shell programs out that simply said, "Fucks off, new piece of suck on tablet design, we're using the old one, everyone knows and can use." So my options were limited. Did an initial look at what I was getting myself into, and lucky me, AITA had only put out drivers for Windows 8 for this model. Yay, I do about 6 hours worth of hunting, downloading tweaking drivers, and praying, cursing the tech gods as I installed Windows 7. I had to cherry-pick working drivers for most of the hardware. The rest I got to work through sheer trial and error. I made a restore disk, backed up, and labeled every driver for the system in individual numbered folders in case I needed to redo anything on this piece of shit. My friend is notorious for foxing up his computer's operating system. I give him a ring and let him know it's good to go, and he picks it up the next day. Less than 2 weeks later, he texts saying something's wrong with it, it won't do blah blah blah, or I can't get it to do what I want. Shocking, I know. I just restored from the disk I made and gave it back the same day. Let's see how long this lasts. Almost a week later, same thing. Again, a quick restore and I give it back. This time it took almost a whole 3 weeks till I got a text. "Now I'm picky." And what the Hassan is he doing to this thing to fugging up the operating system? I finally took the time to look at the system and see WTF was going on. He had a bunch of cracked games downloaded and was trying to run those, a bunch of virus malware on it, and a bunch of shady porn sites in his browser history. I'm livid. The only reason I kept fixing this thing was because it was supposed to be his daughter's. I got a hold of his wife to see exactly who was really using the laptop and for what. Turns out he told her it was having issues and he was constantly trying to fix it at home and even took it to work to mess around with it when he had time. He was a manager at a hut that sells pizza. He's one of those real hands-on managers who let everyone know what needs to be done, then fucks off in the office. So I get the evil idea of fixing things my way. My first step to fixing things my way was to make an admin account that only I had the info for and limit the other account to a limited user. When I talked to his wife, I got a good idea of what his daughter really likes as far as shows, games, etc. I then proceeded to pimp this laptop out for a 10-year-old girl. My Little Pony wallpapers? About 100 on rotation. The entire My Little Pony cartoon show stored directly on the computer. Bratz, Barbie, the works. I even redid the icons to a My Little Pony theme and tweaked the user interface to be pink-purple colored. I made sure there was a parental lock on the browsers to prevent anything porn-related from even showing up on the laptop. I installed TeamViewer and locked in my personal credentials so I could get on anytime I needed. And just for good measure, I installed a handy program called Deep Freeze. For those unfamiliar with it, it snapshots the drive as is and restores the drive to that exact image every time the power cycles. The only downside to this program is that you lose anything you save on the computer when the power cycles. Not a problem, since I had gotten a bulk pack of thumb drives that were multicolored and came with lanyards. I even went a step above and beyond and got a My Little Pony skin for the laptop lid in case he thought of taking it to work again. I personally delivered the laptop this time when the wife and daughter were home. The girly, high-pitched squeals of joy that nearly ruptured my eardrums made it all worth it. She went off on a joy-induced tirade as I showed her and her mom everything I did, including all the shows and games I put on just for her. I then gave her a bright pink thumb drive with purple lanyard and explained that when she wanted to play the games or save anything, the drive needed to be plugged in. I set the save path for all the games to the thumb drive and added a shortcut to the drive itself on the desktop to make sure she wouldn't lose any schoolwork she was doing. I made sure both she and her mom knew the thumb drive had to be plugged in. Otherwise, things wouldn't be saved. I didn't mention the parental lock I set up or the deep freeze. I wanted it to be a surprise for my friend later. Both she and her mom thanked me, and I got a big hug from the daughter who was still flying around on cloud 9. She was begging her mom to watch My Little Pony with her before I even left. I knew it was only a matter of time till I got an angry text call from my friend as soon as he got a chance to use the laptop. I was waiting with gleeful anticipation. I had dropped the laptop off on Monday, and I knew he wouldn't get a chance to use it till Friday when he got back from a trip he took. Cut to Friday night, and I get a call around 8 p.m., which I ignore and let go to voicemail. I get 3 more calls every 5-10 minutes, which I also ignore. Then I get a bunch of texts, which I ignored till about 11 p.m. when I figured he had ample time to try and fake with the laptop to only be shut down at every attempt. I call him up with an especially snarky attitude, acting half asleep just to pawn him off. Mooch, finally, where the fucks have you been? I tried calling you and texting, but you never responded. Me, yeah, I had a long day, so I took an evening nap. What's up? Mooch, what's up? This piece of Sawa's laptop is busted. That's what's up. I can't get anything to work right. I downloaded a game and tried installing it, but it says I don't have admin rights. I restarted it and the game files were gone completely, so I re-downloaded it, but still couldn't install it. It's not even letting me browse the web. I thought you fixed this. What the hey? Me. Calm down, I'm sure it's something simple. Let me remote in. Mooch, wait, you can do that? Me. Yeah, I got sick of having to have it dropped off, so I installed remote software. Let's see. First thing I do is remotely restart the system. Mooch, it did it again! Me, what? Mooch, the game I downloaded is gone from the desktop. Me? Oh yeah, I put software on the laptop that restores it to a default setting. Anything not saved on an external drive gets removed. I gave your wife and daughter a thumb drive. Didn't they tell you it was needed? Mooch, no, what the? Why'd you do a stupid thing like that? Me, well, I've had to fix this thing 3 times already and I got sick of it. So I made sure anything you downloaded or tried to install would be deleted and blocked. You don't have admin rights? I do. Last time, there were over a dozen viruses of malware from your games, and the games you were trying to run would barely run on this laptop, even if you had legit versions. Mooch, what the Insert 15-minute rant I didn't pay any attention to because I don't care. Well, why won't it let me browse the web? Me? Are you sure? Let's see. I bring up Google and start browsing standard sites, hit a few cartoon sites I favorited for his daughter. Everything looks fine to me. Could you be referring to the porn sites that were in the browser history on your daughter's laptop? Mooch, me. Yeah, I thought so. See, me being the upstanding guy I am, I turned on parental controls to keep web browsing safe for your 10-year-old daughter. The fuck is wrong with you? Mooch, but me. No buts. It took a lot of work to get this thing working for your daughter's sake, and then you use it as your personal play toy, which I had to fix 3 times. I'm done with your bulls. I made it so your daughter can use her laptop when and how she needs. If you want to get your own laptop and fun it up beyond repair, that's fine by me. No more freebies if you fuck something up being an idiot. If you think this is unfair, I'd be more than happy to let your wife know exactly what the issue with the laptop was, including screenshots of your browsing history. I don't mind helping, but you go above and beyond being a mooch a lot of times. Anything else you need help with? Mooch, no. Me, have a great weekend. Click. Having spent over 18 years in customer service, tech support, I went a bit nuclear on him, but I had had enough of his Reminded me of all too many times the problem isn't the hardware or software. It's the meat puppet smashing their face against the keyboard and wondering why stuff doesn't work. So I simply removed that part of the equation. Amazingly enough, he didn't have any more issues with that laptop. Wonder why? The only time I was gotten a hold of was by his wife asking me to update some things and install some software the daughter needed for school, which I was more than happy to do. Story 2, that's not your car, lady. So this happened around 2008. My buddy Brock had gotten out of the military after 10 years. He'd started in the Marines but transitioned into the Army for the last 4 years before buying a house in Texas. When he got out, he did a variety of jobs before landing a gig with a repo service. He worked there for a year and had a lot of wild stories, but this one sticks out the most as he helped a fellow soldier get revenge on an evil ex. Brock was at the office speaking with his manager, whom I'll refer to as Karen. Now, this particular Karen had a lot of Karen-like qualities, but was a force for good if you can believe that. While they were talking, they saw a young man enter the office. They immediately noticed he had 2 black eyes and an arm in a sling. The young man, whose name I unfortunately never learned, but I'll call Ben, asked how hard it would be for them to help repossess his car. Karen called her daughter in, Karen Jr., and had her pour Ben a cup of coffee. Karen then asked Ben to tell her a story. Ben began by telling her that he had just returned from a deployment. He had been dating a local girl who lived outside of the famous Fort Hood. Not a good idea, BTW before the deployment. Thanks to a previous deployment, he had managed to get himself a used black Dodge Charger, which was his baby. He further explained that shortly after buying the car, he had met the local girl, whom, for the sake of the story, I'll call Morgan. Morgan was always asking to drive his car, but he would always decline. When he was getting ready for his deployment, Morgan repeatedly asked if she could borrow the car, but he kept saying no. After much needling, he relented, but on the condition that she take care of his apartment until he comes back from his rest and relaxation leave. She agreed. Ben left for his deployment while Morgan took care of his place. When Ben came back from leave, he found his apartment immaculate. He pulled his car from storage and drove to Morgan's. He spent a few days with her before handing her the keys and heading to his home state to visit family before returning to his deployment. He returned from his deployment and found nothing but trouble. When he walked into his apartment, he found a layer of dust on just about every surface. It was almost like no one had been there in months. When he checked his bedroom, he found his room had been torn apart. All of his drawers had been searched and upturned. He tried to call Morgan but never received an answer. He located his safe, which was hidden, and found it hadn't been touched. He then grabbed his spare key from the safe, called a buddy of his, and they went to Morgan's. As they pulled up to Morgan's, he saw a car there that he initially didn't recognize, but as they got closer, he realized it was his baby. Morgan had the car painted hot pink and put 24-inch spinners on it. He tried the key just to make sure, and the lights flickered as it unlocked. While his buddy laughed, Ben went to the front door and Morgan answered. He asked what happened to his car, and she responded, "It's my car now." Ben walked away and hopped in his hot pink mess. As he started, 4 large dudes came out of Morgan's house, one with a baseball bat, and yanked Ben out of his car. They proceeded to beat the crap out of him in the driveway before his friend intervened, pulling his concealed and carry pistol on the group. He then took Ben to the hospital. I'm honestly not sure if the cops were called on this. I'd assume yes, but even then, Ben said his friend drove by Morgan's house a handful of times while he was in the hospital at random times and the car was never there. Karen stared at Ben for a bit before asking for the paperwork. Ben handed it to her, and Karen had a smile on her face. She then asked Ben for Morgan's phone number. Ben gave it but wasn't aware of what was about to happen. Karen handed the phone to Karen Jr., who then dialed the number. Karen Jr. then began speaking to Morgan, telling her that they'd met at one of the local clubs and wanted to know if she was down to party that night. Apparently, Morgan agreed, and the plan was set. Brock parked his tow truck at the club and waited. Sure enough, Morgan showed up with the pink monster, parked it, and went inside with some girlfriends. Brock gave them 5 minutes before he stealthily drove up to the car and hooked it up. As he was pulling out with the pink monster, Morgan walked out of the club. She saw her car in the tow truck and began trying to flag Brock down, but he was already out of there. The next day, it was business as usual at the office when Morgan called. She was furious that her car was stolen by them and wanted it back. Karen, using her best customer service voice, told her that if she had the registration, she could come pick it up. Morgan began screaming louder that she was going to call the cops, at which point Karen sarcastically told her, "Please do," then hung up on her. As this phone call was going on, Brock happened to look out the window and saw Morgan standing next to a car in a vacant lot, throwing what appeared to be a temper tantrum. After Karen hung up, Brock watched her get in the car on the passenger side. Karen then looked out the window and had Brock verify it was her. She then began to smirk. Karen then proceeded to call the owner of the property that Morgan and her friend were occupying. She told the owner about the car and asked if he wanted it towed. The owner okayed it. Brock then drove his truck over to the ladies in the car and introduced himself. They tried to explain that they were waiting for Morgan's boyfriend, but Brock insisted they weren't allowed to park there. They argued and called him every name in the book. Brock then hooked up their car and lifted it partially off the ground, forcing the two to exit the vehicle. They tore into him until he showed them the tow order. While this back and forth was going on, Ben arrived at the office and Morgan saw him walk in. She ran to the office door and Brock proceeded to lower the car. When Brock went back to the office, all hell had broken loose. Morgan apparently tried to snag the keys back from Ben, but he pocketed them. She began to hit him in his hurt arm and warned Ben that she'd call her friends to finish the job if she didn't get her keys back. Karen Jr. had already called the cops at this point, and Brock got in between Ben and Morgan, even telling Morgan to try hitting him to find out what would happen. Morgan then tried to play the pity card and said she only wanted the keys to get her laptop out for school. Karen asked Ben to hand the keys over to Brock so he could grab the laptop. Brock retrieved the laptop from the car, and as he was handing it over, she rushed to aggressively grab it, but knocked it from Brock's hands. Completely furious at this point, Morgan accused Brock of dropping the computer on purpose and threatened to sue. The cops then arrived, and Morgan began her sob story again, telling the police that they had stolen her car. The police questioned Karen, and Karen gave her casual smirk while asking if they wanted to see the security videos. The police watched and listened as Morgan punched Ben several times and heard the threats she made about sending her friends after him. The police then turned to Morgan, who had turned ghost white at this point. She tried to back her way to the door, but the police stopped her. They proceeded to ask about the car, Ben's injuries, and who she planned to send after him. She initially denied everything, but they already had evidence of her beating him up. She was arrested, and Ben got his car back. After the cops left, Ben admitted he didn't want to be seen in a car that looked like it was advertising Pepto-Bismol and planned on trading it in for a GTO. We later heard through the grapevine that the 4 guys who beat up Ben were arrested, and Morgan had ratted them out. Brock had a few more stories, but none of them were nearly as good as this one. Edit. Wow, thanks for all the support, guys. I love that so many have enjoyed this story. So, I've had a few people try to refute this story, and I assure you this story is true. I have no reason to lie to anyone about this. Also, some people are asking how this is considered pro-revenge. While Ben didn't personally get the revenge, Karen was the instrument of Morgan's destruction. She set Morgan up to lose the car after Ben and his friend couldn't locate it on their own. Morgan's fate was more or less her own doing. She believed that she could strong-arm an injured man with multiple witnesses while making threats. Also, while gang activity was fairly high in the Killeen, TX area, I'm not 100% sure if they were connected to any gangs. I just want to throw that last part out there.